It's interesting to watch what's happened to this conference and this is number 4. Mm-hmm. It's great fun for us, and it allows us to try ideas out. And this group, the companies that come here, set our development objectives for the coming year. And a lot of it has to do with software and marketing.
This is a place we come every year to share a lot of the thinking that's going on at Redbird. What you saw on the screen and what you're going to hear about for the next couple of days is the next breakthrough. And it really comes, when you think about it, because the simulator, with avionics that have been replicated by a computer, can not only deliver to the student the exact characteristics that avionics would deliver in a cockpit, but the simulator can watch the student. The simulator can interact with the student. The simulator can do a walk around on the ground and talk to the student. The simulator, through trace technology and other things, can take people who literally have never flown in an airplane and have them doing short field takeoffs, flying the pattern, doing lazy eights, doing steep rolls. We know this because that's what the Flying Challenge did.
And it was everywhere. It was media, it was mom and pop, it was retail, it was even the computer companies who were supposed to be good at this type of stuff. They were getting disrupted, right? But it's interesting, but you didn't really choose. We actually did this research. We went out to 2000, to the global 2000, but the big one was Kodak. Kodak was, Kodak, blockbuster type, but they're actually a verb. That Kodak moment is now no longer a good thing. Disruption lesson number 1 is disruptive technologies didn't sneak up on anybody. It's not like, oh my God, there are these things called computers. So the technology future is forecastable. We know what's coming. We know what's coming. But where we start getting confused is, what are we supposed to do about it? Kodak knew. Digital photography was not a surprise to Kodak. They invented it. A wonderful guy named Steve Sassone, basically the engineer, he invented it, and he took it to senior management, and you know what they said? They said, cute, don't tell anybody about it.
I spent 21 years at Douglas Aircraft. I then left for Cessna and spent quite some time there. All of those companies that grew stronger had a couple things in common, and those things that were in common was they all embraced change. That was critically important to any of those companies, and embracing change, they knew that they had to take some risks. That was going to be part of the equation. To understand change, take the risks associated with that change.
We're going to talk about your students of the future. One of the joys of being a professor is that each year, when the new year begins, I'm 1 year older and they're still 17. And that gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which usually means that I find myself as an anthropologist trying to figure out, who are these kids? There's 4 large quadrants of demographics. We got the matures, we got the greatest generation basically, the boomers, the Gen Xers, and the millennials. Youngest World War II vet last weekend was 89 years old. We're the boomers. I'll be 62. We're shrinking. Gen X, shrinking. Millennials, and more importantly, digital natives are growing. When we say millennials, we're talking about young people basically born between 78 and 94. When we talk about Generation Z, these are digital natives. You realize these kids are now entering college, which means they're also in the Civil Air Patrol, which means what? That pretty soon you should be going after them. Or even more importantly, they should be coming after you. What are the numbers we're talking about? The numbers are gigantic. Millennials alone in the United States comprise 83 million inhabitants. If we add the digital natives, we add another 80+ million. That means by 2016, over half of the United States will be comprised of digital natives. People who have grown up with technology as literally being part of who they are.
I am very passionate about proficiency because I consider myself to be a very lucky pilot. there's this unique opportunity to meet the general aviation recreational pilot in a way that's never been true before, and industry is excited about this. And then we have AOPA, EAA, and GAMA that are in this very enlightened alignment right now, which is we got to build pilots. And once we win one, we got to make that pilot fly safely for a long time. And you don't get them to fly safely for a long time by reading accident reports. That's how you get their attention. You get them to fly safely for a long time by skill building.
All right, they're taxiing up a Red Hawk right now. It's been running and doing a circuit in the pattern. This represents your instructor and customer coming back to the ramp. Watch the screen. We just pushed a new bunch of data automatically as a download from that last flight. All of this data is being collected by a single box inside the airplane and transmitting that back to you automatically when the plane returns. That data is going to include lots of stuff. It's going to include AHRS data. It's going to include an accelerometer. It's going to include data that came from any of the things that you find interesting in terms of engine parameters or flight performance or where the airplane was. Did you get too close to protected airspace? Was altitude a problem? All those kinds of things are going to be available to you, and you're going to decide how you want to manage those. And that's going to happen inside the Connected Flight School. At the heart of it is a database program, and that database program gets information from the airplanes in the simulator and reports information back and forth to the training department, the training managers, accounting, and to maintenance. It transmits all of that data, as you saw, back to the flight school upon landing.
I dreamed of flight. My earliest aeronautical designs were clearly influenced by birds. These machines would use flapping wings to generate both lift and propulsion, or so I thought. I contemplated the pilot being prone, standing vertically, using arms and using legs. But it turns out the big human is weak compared to the little bird. Human muscle power and the physical endurance pales in comparison with our winged friends. So, if going from the ground into the air would prove too difficult, I would concentrate instead on going from the air back to the ground safely. Allora, I give you the parachute. It's a pyramid-shaped framework and a structure, was covered with cloth, and would allow any man to throw himself off a great height and land without suffering any injury. But to be honest with you, I never tried it myself. I'm too old for that sort of thing. I was the father of the helicopter. Well, maybe the grandfather. My aerial screw was like a giant whirling pinwheel. The blades of this helicopter were to be made out of linen. And when turned fast enough, air pressure would build up under the blades, thus forcing the flying machine into the sky.